And I think we'll start with some introductions. Dr. Robbie?
Yes, hello, my name is Kari Rabi. I am a family practice and addiction medicine physician, and I've been doing MAT here at NACC since I think 2016.
Tina?
My name is Tina Monnier. I'm the harm reduction manager here at NACC.
And I'm Lindsay King-Cooney. I'm the community and tribal engagement specialist here at NACC. We have a few other people on our team that will be joining us a little bit later. Nikki Jardina is our infectious disease nurse, and Michelle Corcoran is our MAT nurse manager. We also have Renee Bolio Banks as our elder in residence, who usually comes and delivers a blessing, but I don't think she can join us today, unfortunately. So we'll get started. I'm going to share my screen. Oh, there she is. There she is. Okay, I'm going to stop recording for a moment. Okay, so we just heard a blessing from Renee. I'm going to start with some announcements. Share my screen. So welcome again, everybody, to Midwest Tribal Echo. We're the Opioid Use Disorder Education and Treatment Series. Today we have Dr. Sandra Comstock talking to us about the Hygiene-4-All program in Portland, Oregon. She's the executive director. A little bit about us. So we are NACC. We're the Native American Community Clinic. We're an FQHC established in 2003. So we've been open for 20 years. This is a list of all of the services that we provide, from primary care to behavioral health, harm reduction services. We have a MAT program. We have direct prescribed Suboxone and also dosing clinic. This is a list of our current job openings at NACC. If you want to read more about those, feel free. There's our website at the bottom there. Session guidelines, please no protected health information. If you could mute yourself if you're not speaking. You're welcome to eat your lunch. If you could turn on your camera if you're feeling open to it, we'd like to see your faces. If you could let me know in the chat who you are, your organization, and your email, that would be great. And yeah, we invite you to use the chat to ask questions or make comments. Some announcements. So we do not have an echo on October 4th. We'll be closed. So our next echo is in about a month. On October 18th, we have Pat Buckley talking to us about wound care. This is a list of other echoes that we recommend that cover similar topics. We do offer CME credit for those who are eligible, but we just need you to fill out the post-evaluation survey that I will provide in the chat and then also email after the session. This is just a reminder of the X waiver removal. You can use CME credits from these sessions to complete the training. And then case presentations, if you do have a case presentation that you'd like to share, please contact me. My email address is down at the bottom. And with that, I am going to hand it over to Sandra.
Oh boy. So I'm Sandra Comstock. I'm not a real doctor. I'm a sociologist. So I'm a recovered professor. And I guess a little bit about me. I started out as working in Nicaragua just after the tail end of the revolution on sort of popular education stuff. I also spent 1.5 years living on the streets between high school and going back to college. And this work is like, honestly, it's the work that I feel like it's the work I was meant to do. It brings together all the different things that I've done in my life, and I just love working with the people and the team that we have. So a little bit about Hygiene-4-All. We're a tiny little, we're sort of bring a path-breaking approach to helping Portland's unsheltered residents stay clean, healthy, and safe on the streets. In 2020, December of 2020, after doing some other things related to COVID and COVID safety villages, we opened our first outdoor site underneath the Morrison Bridge, offering attendant-assisted toilets, showers, trash drop-off, a laundry exchange, and physical and mental health first aid, all designed, guided, and operated by and for our unsheltered community members. So most of our team is unsheltered. We have a few folks who are not, but most people have lived experience if they're not currently unsheltered. So to deliver these services, we have developed general safety strategies and particular practices for disrupting racist, anti-LGBTQ, sexist, and ableist harm in and around the hub. So that's been really important because most trainings are not made for our community. So like building a trainings that really speak to people's experiences and what happens on the streets has been really important for developing our culture and our values. We also spend a lot of time just talking about those values and training on those values, but also on the day-to-day in the hub, there's a lot of mentoring that goes on and a lot of ways in which those are reinforced, which I feel like are really important. Like otherwise, it's just an abstract training, one and done kind of thing. So like our accountability processes that we have for when different kinds of harm happen are part of sort of reinforcing the values that we hold, and also doing work to repair and build sort of growth and learning into that. Currently, we have about 30 housed volunteers, 12 paid staff members, the majority of whom are Latinx, Black, Middle Eastern, or Indigenous. And probably like about half of our leadership staff is also from the LGBTQ community. And I want to just pause there for a second and ask, like, I don't want to like just talk at you. So if there's like an immediate question, let me know so far. And if not, we can switch to slide 2. So in this talk, I'm just going to talk about what is the Hygiene Hub, what are the challenges that we address, what are our responses and solutions, and a little bit about our origins, which kind of explains how we approach things, a little bit about our method and philosophy, and most of all, the importance of collaboration across organizations and the housing divide. So there's a reason why we have housed volunteers working alongside our unsheltered staff. Like, we believe that building those relationships and understanding is a super important part of the political work of building power and community and being able to do more than just offer services, but work on systemic change as well. And then we can go to slide 3. So just to give you an idea, this is what the hub is. So you'll see on the left, that's the central east side of Portland. And that little orange spot is our spot, literally underneath the bridge at Morrison. So we don't have like a formal building. We were given a piece of land by the Portland Bureau of Transportation and county bridges to sort of develop this site. So, and then you'll see right here, we've got these little pods where our little health office is, and some of our back supply, where we offer clothing. We've also put in a garden, which needs some work, frankly, right now. And that's our shower trailer and our porta potties. So all of our water is trucked in. We have a generator for electricity. And I was explaining that I tried to get funding to have more stable power and water that would save us a lot of money, but the county doesn't think that's a good idea since we're on public land. And you'll also see like, like the medallion that I was talking about, that's like a turtle medallion that was done by an unsheltered person from another program called Gather, Make, Shelter. The idea is that people deserve a beautiful, restful sanctuary where they can come, like even if it's under a bridge, we can make it relatively pretty. And I don't know if anybody has any questions about that, but I'll just leave a space for it. And I guess I should mention, we offer showers, toilets, trash disposal, foot and wound care, mental health first aid, and a clothing and bedding exchange where we offer clean and dry clothing and bedding exchange for dirty, damp items. So that involves both the foot and wound care involves self-care packages that include like the items people need for typical things like trench foot or lesions, etc. And then also instructions on how to use it. And those were actually developed with Pat Buckley many years ago. So I was excited to see Pat's name up there. But we also have partnerships, which I'll talk about later, with a lot of different medical providers as well. And I'll also talk about the clothing and bedding exchange a little more afterward. So yeah, we can move to the next slide. Oops, I did not format that very well, did I? So what challenges are we addressing here? If you realize how Portland's current infrastructural shortcomings and responses to those living on the street deepen chronic houselessness. For those living in Portland, Portland offers just a handful of showers and laundry facilities, no legal place to dispose of household trash. And yet people get vilified, targeted, ticketed, and forcibly removed when faced with no other choice to meet their basic needs where they can outside. So especially the displacement involved, the continual serial displacement of folks, which by the way has amped up from like people telling us they've been forcibly displaced once a month to now it's 2 to 3 times a week. So that's everybody has to, pick up all their stuff and move yet again. So that's been really undermining of people's stability, dignity, health, and well-being. And, we've heard just countless tales of how preventing people from keeping clean and accessing trash bins and fear of losing their possessions and sweeps have rendered folks more physically and emotionally fragile, and often ended in tickets, which unpaid go make it warrants, which end up getting people jailed. So over 50% of, this is from a couple of years ago, over 50% of those who are jailed in our town are from the houseless population. They make up about 3% of the population overall. So, and most of those jailings are for unpaid warrants and for nonviolent violations, and even just crimes of survival, like public urination, because there's 36 public bathrooms that are open 24/7 in the entire city. And in our area, like our 77 square city block, aside from our toilets, there's only 2 toilets where you can go to the bathroom without having to buy something. And even then, have to deal with all the harassment. So I think we can go to slide 5. So what's been our response? Basically, our response to these barriers and frustrations has been to build a participatory practice and movement where unsheltered teammates and constituents weigh in with their concerns, challenges, and priorities, where we work side by side to co-create dignified, community-guided, low-barrier services rooted in familiar forms of peer-to-peer mutual aid, which are already happening on the street, and building bridges with partners willing to respectfully support and enhance our peer-to-peer programs and offerings. In addition, we seek to share and amplify what we have learned and the methods we are using with the broader community. So that's like a really important part of what we do too, is being a resource for other small affinity organizations. So slide 6, yes it is. So I want to just go in briefly, like how did the hub begin? Like where did it start? And The specific concept of the hub was born in 2018 out of advocacy for the homeless folks living on the Central East Side. At that time, the Central East Side of Portland, the business community had proposed an enhanced service district, which some of you may know about, where basically private businesses come together to pay for private security force and other enhancements. But in this case, 2/3 of the money was going to go through to a private security force that would clear houseless residents from public streets. So private policing of public space with no accountability over like how that takes place. It's sort of a black box once you privatize it. So what we did was take what they said was the raison d'etre of this program, which was, need to like not have bio waste in the public domain, less, mental health issues on the streets, et cetera. And we said, like, if you really want to change that, just moving people out or policing them is not going to change something that involves unmet needs. So we got together as activists, leaders, and allies to make up an alternative proposal, which we called the Compassionate Change Plan. And one of the elements of it, among others, there were several different elements, was a houseless led and run hygiene hub that would provide a place for people to safely use restrooms, legally dispose of household trash, and receive, mental and physical health support. So that's the idea from which Hygiene-4-All was born. And then it took about 2 years of planning, studying, and relationship building and fundraising to make it happen. So we can go to the next slide. So Hygiene-4-All, it's like the whole concept from design, the look, everything else represents thousands of hours of engaging with people living on the streets in Portland about problems and potential solutions to public health, community safety, and sanitation crises. So for a year and a little bit more, it was often two meetings a week to talk about, like, what does safety look like to you? What are some of the reasons why you avoid particular places where you can get some resources met and things like that. So basically out of that, like, what's in this spot, like what we've developed is a representation of all that work, mostly held in like dining halls or in a parking lot outside, as often the case. And the idea was not just to create like a set of services, but kind of proof of concept for an alternative approach to offering those services and way of doing things. So like that we could then share with other organizations and also advocate for as an alternative to just private policing of public space, which accomplishes pretty much nothing. So that's next slide. Yeah, so what's our model and philosophy? What really sets us apart, I think, is the deep collaboration between housed and houseless neighbors that we find, is key to, we think is key to improving the lives of unsheltered Portlanders. By bringing traditionally siloed communities of knowledge together, our efforts are aimed at disrupting like stale habits of thought and just getting people to think outside the box by not being in the room with people that just have the same assumptions, and catalyzing new ideas on how to confront the massive challenges that we're facing with chronic homelessness in Portland. So our model and philosophy is like really well illustrated by how we built the clothing and bedding exchange. So as we began our conversations about building a hygiene hub, we knew dirty clothing and bedding and both as a problem for people who didn't have clean clothing, but also as a problem for street waste, were really big problems for the city. So there'd been a city audit that showed that 70% of what they were picking up in terms of street waste consisted of clothing and bedding related waste. And then just from talking to people, like there was a lot of comments about how difficult it is to get clothing washed and clean. It can take hours of standing in line. And then if you have a problem with, say, lice or scabies or something like that, the effort that you have to make to both treat your body, get clean, and then also replace clothing and bedding is a huge hurdle to being able to address those issues. But we also knew that we could not run washers and dryers underneath the bridge. And also people talked about how like that, the amount of effort put in, not just to the washing and clothing, but like waiting in lines was a real impediment to not just looking for new clothes from another clothing closet. So out of that, we came up with this idea of collecting dirty clothing, washing it off site, and then bringing it back and recycling it through so people could, you know, leave their dirty clothing and soiled clothing behind and get new stuff. And then we could still reuse that. And over time, what we realized is it's hard. The people dropping off their dirty clothing hasn't been that successful, but we have another sister organization called Ground Score, which is us-led workers collective that does trash side pickup for the county and city, where, I mean, tent side pickup. And now what they're doing is separating out, and that's all voluntary. So they're not like doing sweeps like where they make people move on. It's just offering trash bags and collecting trash like you would, you know, if you had a house, basically. But they've set aside all the clothing and bedding for us. We wash it and dry it. And then anything that we can recycle through our program, we do. And then if it's not reusable for its initial purpose, we'll take it to a rag place. So that has been like one of the really coolest sort of problem solving things we've done as a group, is just like, you know, coming up with that through that iterative process of like, you know, here's our limitations, how do we deal with it? So next slide. So yeah, like just to kind of sum up some important points, you know, in short, Hygiene-4-All isn't just about meeting important community needs. It's also involving houseless folks and solving problems that they already are, you know, partially solving themselves through the like mutual aid that people give one another. And then leveraging that knowledge and putting it into practice and also sharing it with others. So we're really about leveraging and showcasing like all the ways in which the houseless community's experience and know-how can be used to come up with new solutions, especially when combined with conversations with others. And also, you know, we're a place of you know, like every policy in the city is organized to keep people moving on, keep people moving around, which is extremely destructive to people's mental health and their physical health. So having a place where people can orient themselves, where they can organize, where they can come together and talk is really important for building solidarity and just relationships that we can build strategies for overcoming unequal access to health, hygiene, and safety. That's really driving the ever deepening chronic houselessness we're seeing. Well, that in combination with the fact that this absolute scarcity of affordable housing, which is the root cause. So yeah, we're just about expanding opportunities for agency in problem solving, agency in reducing community conflict and rejection, and agency through active participation in civic discourse, discussions, and plans being made to address Portland's increasingly dire situation with housing, health, hygiene, and sanitation emergencies. And I'll just say, like, one of my proudest things right now is because of the work we've done and the relationships we've built, we're able to have several of our unsheltered staff members and patrons join a class action lawsuit against the city around the new camping ban that they're trying to keep going right now. So like, that's really important to us, and the ways in which people have opportunities to do testimony, to be part of just civic life in general. So next slide. So yeah, here's where it all hits. You know, this is the meat of things, right? Is our method of using work circles and partners to cross the housing divide. It really takes, you know, it's really helpful to not try to be an expert in all and like continue to expand every last little thing, but to work for the relationships where others can share their expertise with us and come together to offer a lot more. So basically, you can see we're working with Portland Street Medicine, which allows us to get them people tent side emergency care and advice. Working with Portland Street Response right now on extreme weather planning and resource sharing. The Cascade AIDS Project comes and does HIV testing on the regular and follows up with treatment as needed with our help and facilitation. Same thing with the Central City Concern Hep C program. And then the Bob team, which like basically has peer support specialists who can meet people at the hospital and help them navigate and advocate in those spaces where they've often been treated really poorly. And we've got research and advocacy. We just finished a big study on unmet laundry and waste needs. We have this cool newsletter, which is focused especially on LGBTQ BIPOC residents experiencing disability. Because one thing we found last year when the city had rolled out a whole bunch of new ways to criminalize and take this carceral approach to houselessness is, you know, the work needed to respond to that and to gather testimony and help people prep was pretty exhausting. And so the idea is that to build sort of a bank of already existing testimony, experiences, stories, and relationships that can be activated when it's needed. I already mentioned the Oregon Law Center. So we've got a couple of people who are plaintiffs in this case against the city. And affinity organizations. So we have, I don't know how many groups we've offered free trainings to in both our safety planning and our disrupting identity-based harm stuff. And then we've been working with a couple of new programs on like sharing our handbook and our accountability process, et cetera. And then coalitions are really important. So like I said, we're on the Supportive Housing Services Advisory Council for the county. We work with the Welcome Home Coalition and also the Portland Metro People's Coalition to, you know, build both like build better policy recommendations from the ground up, and then also to make sure that both the county commissioners are hearing those perspectives, as well as making sure that the Joint Office of Homeless Services staff is hearing them as well. And then, I don't know, I won't go on. I feel like I've gone on way too long. Oh, I know what it is. Work circles. So we use, gosh, now I'm spacing for a sec, hang on. We use like sociocratic practices of work circles. So both our staff members and volunteers, if they want, can be part of the health circle, the research training and advocacy circle, the clothing and bedding exchange and hygiene circle, or the operations and maintenance. And each of those develops recommendations and proposals in its own little thing. And then as long as it's sort of aligned with our values and we're doing things one at a time, going slow is important, we'll try out a proposal that they're putting together and then revisit it in 3 months. And then either as a group decide that this is a great thing we should just keep doing, we should adjust it, or whether it doesn't really work. So like that is a really key piece of things. And like building that, those also sort of help connect our staff and our volunteers directly with our partners to build those bridges. So that's another like cool part of our method and the way that we work. And I think that's all I have to say on that. Next slide. So yeah, just that's us in a nutshell. And there behind us is like before when we were just putting things in place. So like that was before the whole site was set up. But that's where we are underneath the bridge, and that's a early version of part of our team. And 2 of the 4 that are with me are still with the program, which I'm very appreciative of. And that's all I got to say. And I'd love to hear some questions or clarify things or whatever.
Thank you so much. I'm going to stop sharing so that we can see everybody. And if anyone has any questions or comments, please feel free to share. I was gonna say you were telling us off camera, but what's behind you, the mural? I don't know if you want to tell the group a little bit about that. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, so I mean, among other things, the thing that we feel is very important is like making a beautiful space and a peaceful, beautiful, aesthetically pleasing space for those that visit us. So this is a picture of part of the mural that's on our back wall underneath the bridge. And I wish I had before and after pictures to show you right now, because it was really it's kind of astonishing, like how much prettier and more inviting it is now that it's got paint not only on the back wall, but also our whole floor is painted a very vibrant blue. And then we have some medallions that are painted on that serve as sort of like a way to set up our circle for people to like interact and things like that. And that also was developed with the community, sort of what they wanted to see in the picture. And then working with an artist to make a concept and then have it painted. And then as well, we've been working with Gather, Make, Shelter, which is an organization that does art with houseless folks, but public art and other kinds of art. So our medallions and other pieces, decorative elements are thanks to unhoused folks paid through Gather, Make, Shelter.
It looks like there's a comment in the chat from Sean. She says, thanks for sharing. I love the idea of the pods and having a central area for these services.
Yeah, I mean, that's the cool thing is that, most of the people, I'd say like 70% of folks are from within 10 to 15 blocks from us, and just like having that place where they can go, not just get showers, etc., but also just like being community, and the relationships that have been built have been really important to the other kinds of work we're doing as well.
Hi, Sandra. My
Hey.
name is Rachel. I'm the HR manager here at NACC in Minneapolis, and I actually used to live in Portland. And so I'm very familiar with the area where you operate out of. I was curious about the public's perception of what it is that you're doing there.
Could you be like a little more specific?
Well,
Which pub?
like in terms of like support that you receive, or because when we have a lot of areas in in our surrounding area around the clinic where a lot of our unsheltered folks are set up, and it's not very popular.
Yeah.
And there's been, in about 2018, we had a very large area called the Wall of Forgotten Natives that was set up. And for a time, the city did get involved. There was a lot of agencies that were involved, and we did have we did have like shower stations and a bunch of services that were set up to help people. And it drew a lot of public attention. People were really wanting to help. And for a time, it did feel that people were really coming together. It also drew a lot of scrutiny. And so I'm just curious about, how people perceive these services, if there is support for this, if they're, just generally how people see this.
I mean, in general, like the feedback I get directly and that, the attention that we've gotten has been very positive. I think like, we have more house volunteers than we can actually use. And like long term, like, I think the model is set up in such a way, like and the ways in which, I mean, we've never had to call the police, knock on wood, once in the time that we've been there. I've had to ask people to take a break from the hub probably like 2 or 3 times. We do a lot of work, like if people want to do understand safety planning or things like that. So we're out and about in the community in a lot of different ways. I mean, we even gotten money from the enhanced service district that we organized against, which, I mean, everybody's like, oh, well, is that ethical? I'm like, dude, I'd rather have it spent on that than private policing, like, so, like generally we have pretty positive relationship, also very strong relationships with the county commissioners, like because of all the work that we've done, like writing policy memos and sharing information in a positive, constructive way. Right now, the city council is a really scary place to be. Like it's really turned in the last couple of years. But there's hostility from city council towards every single provider in town, like any provider at all. And they brought in this California company that's super disturbing, called Urban Alchemy. I don't know if you've heard of them, but don't let them come to your city. So yeah, like I think also just like focusing on connection and also doing something, right? Like this is, I mean, other things haven't gone so well. Like the city put out porta potties during the pandemic, and now they've taken most of those away because like people are just angry about the porta potties, even though they were angry about biowaste before. So I think it's like you have to, like, it involves a lot of intentionality and management and relationship building, that not every initiative has the energy to do. Also, we do harm reduction, but it's not like something that we're like yelling from the rooftops. Like, so other places like Rahab Sisters out on 82nd, where they have like a PPOP county needle exchange program, like that gets a lot more flack and has had some pretty scary things happen with neighbors out in Montevilla. So, I mean, you know what I mean? It's varied, but like sort of hygiene is something everybody can understand. And then also I'm just always emphasizing, we all live in the same petri dish. Like houseless health is whole community health. Like, like if you're keeping people from getting their Hep C treated, that's exposure to the whole community. And I think because we launched COVID safety villages first with a broad coalition of organizations where, just keeping people safe and giving them a place to not contract COVID, also like sort of emphasize that. So I think, it really depends on what you're doing. And, certainly anything involving like dosing, some not like all of that stuff is always going to like, there's going to be haters. That's way too long, but.
There's another question in the chat from Paige. I know she was wondering about the general perception of the public, which I think you covered, but can you talk more about funding and how you got the pods approved?
Oh my gosh. Well, funding has always been like, it's always been individual donations and foundations. So I write a lot of grants, but public funding has been really hard to get. Like, I think finally we're getting some county funding 2-3 years after we were like actually named as an organization as an example of something that should be funded. So it's been really scrappy that way. The pods themselves were a partnership with an organization called Useful Waste, which is an organization run by a woman in the construction industry who saw all these, they do like these mock-up buildings when they're built, when they're going to make a big apartment building or whatever. And then those mock-up buildings just get thrown in the trash. So a lot of those pods are mock-up buildings, sort of made pretty. So all of those pods were donated to us through that program, and mostly through one particular developer whose people heard about it and decided to like also build us our own health pod that was to spec, which was really nice. As far as permitting, like basically as soon as I signed the thing with PBOT and the county bridges, like all of that stuff was included, and that just allowed us to set up there. Just because we're like non-permanent, there just seems to be a lot of leeway, although nobody else has had that capacity, like has had that, like some of the bigger organizations have not had success doing that. And I think that has to do with the relationships we build at the time with city commissioners who are no longer there, who really wanted to see this happen after the anti-enhanced service district campaign. That's a long answer.
Thank you. There's another question from Mark. Has your group organized within the homeless community a security or safety group within the homeless community that monitors and gets involved with potential conflicts?
Mostly we just stick to our area, but it's through the trainings that we offer, and then also the ways in which those practices are reinforced on the daily in the space. So like people take those back and I think use that in their strategies of doing safety in their own communities. Certainly, like if an organization, if you know, like there's a couple of different houseless-led organizations that they wanted to do that and create something more formal, we would do that in a heartbeat. But mostly it's like, I mean, that's what we're doing, is sort of providing a model, an alternative model of, you know, how to maintain safety. And I could talk more about that, but I'll wait to see if anybody wants to hear about that. I mean, I guess I'll just say personally, like I have intervened on a couple of occasions on stuff outside the hub, and people do come to me if they're having trouble with others to try to do some mediation and things like that. So there's like an informal aspect of doing that sort of bigger stuff. And certainly, like, you know, if it comes into the hub, then there's a whole discussion about that, and about like how people need to treat one another in our space, and also how we hope people will treat people outside of our space.
You said you hold like 2-hour meetings to kind of go over these things, the issues that pop up, or come up with solutions on how to do things.
Yeah, so
better.
that's like, yeah, that's like a really important. So our site coordinator team, we have all staff meetings once a month, but our site coordinators are there. So the model is we have a site coordinator, unsheltered staff member, housed volunteer, and then our hub director or myself are there as the person in charge, where we're not like on site doing stuff necessarily, but we're there for consultation if people need extra, you know, just want to figure out what to do. but those 2-hour meetings we have on Wednesdays, which is happening right now in the other room, are all about checking in with like doing hub check-ins. So like, how did the week go for each shift? Like, is somebody in particular having trouble? You know, how do you think we should handle it? Like if something new comes up, like sort of iterative problem solving together. And frankly, like a lot of our handbook and the different pieces, like our equity policies, our incident processing policies, all come out of that those 2-hour sessions each week where we do collective problem solving together. And a big part of that is also our own mental health and making sure that there's plenty of space and time given to like making sure that we're supporting one another to have the capacity to show up for people with our best selves. And that's also the work model. Like, so the shifts are 3 hours a piece. Volunteers usually work like 1 to 2 times a month. Our unsheltered staff work like 2 shifts a week maximum, because it can be intense. And it works a lot better when people can show up as their best selves. So it's not like a lot of time on the ground. And that's the same thing with our site coordinators. Usually have other, like one organizes and deals with our inventory and procurement and things like that. And another one, and then has 2 shifts on the 2 shifts on the ground a week. Same thing with our clothing and bedding exchange person who's in charge of laundry and the volunteers there. So the idea is to connect the work on the ground with other types of work as well. Just because we want to make sure that nobody's burnt out and like just, tired of seeing people. And also to make sure that the operations outside are sort of well aligned with the values and the work on the ground.
Thank you. I think we just have a few minutes left. If anyone has anything else, any comments or questions for Sandra? All right, well, I think we can wrap it up then. Thank you so much, Sandra, for the work that you're doing and sharing the program with all of us. It was great to
Thanks.
have you.
I'm honored to be invited. I appreciate you all and wish you good luck out there in Minnesota.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you
Thanks,
so much.
everybody.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to, I can share documents or whatever. If anybody has an interest, don't hesitate to contact me.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Take good care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.